This is the Samsung DU8000, which is a step up over the DU7200, but a step below the 98-inch DU9000. Now this TV is powered by the Crystal UHD and it's available from a 43-inch all the way up to a 85-inch. It's powered by the Samsung Tizen operating system and it has a remote control with voice commands that you can use on Bixby and Alexa. If you've been following me, you already know that on this video we're going to cover picture tests, audio tests. We're also going to do some gaming and some basic overviews of the menu system. But if we just take a minute to be honest with ourselves, most TV manufacturers are focused on mini LED, OLED, and 8K in some cases. So when it comes to a television like this, it's more for people who are loyal to the brand, looking for a deal. So with that being said, let's get into it. The first thing we're going to check out is the design of this television. Just like before, this TV has a nice thin bezel and there's a little matte piece that goes around the edge. You can raise or lower the TV with this little switch just by moving it up or moving it down. And that's going to give you about 2 inches of clearance so you can slide a small center channel right below it. On the corner, there's a Samsung logo, and when you press it, you can power it off, change the channels up and down, the volume up and down, and you can even select a source like your PlayStation, Xbox. So here's a remote control that comes with it. It's very small and compact. On the back of it has a solar panel, and on the bottom of it there's a USB charger just in case you don't have enough light in your room on a continuous basis, and it will last a few months per charge. Now taking a closer look, on the top you can have a power button, and this button right here gets you through the settings as you can see right there, but there's some other options here. There's a microphone so you can use voice command, navigation keys, back, home. And one thing about the volume control, if you press it in, it will mute the television. This button allows you to toggle through the channels, and as you can see at the bottom, there's some hotkeys such as Netflix, Samsung TV Plus, Disney, and Amazon Prime Video. The voice command on here will allow you to use Samsung Bixby or Amazon, and it's a very simple setup wizard. You just choose Bixby or Alexa, go through some terms and conditions, and once you get everything set up, it'll be ready to go so you can start using it to open applications and more. What's the weather like in San Diego?
It is partly cloudy.
Open up YouTube. So there's some basic things that you can do with the voice remote control. Looking at this television, looking at the remote control, everything looks very similar as it did last year, but they did make some improvements. So next, let's talk about connectivity in the rear panel. Well, first of all, this TV still has that nice stealthy look on it, and at the bottom of it you're going to find these grooves where you can do some basic wire maintenance, plus it comes with a plastic clip so you can run your wires through it. These TVs can easily be mounted on the wall with a standard wall bracket, or you can opt in to get Samsung's bracket, which is a lot thinner, and it will use M8 screws to secure it to the bracket. As far as connections, you're going to find 2 USBs, a Ethernet connection if you don't want to use Wi-Fi, and there's 3 HDMI 2.1 ports and a fiber optic output. And note here that this TV has your standard TV tuner, not the ATSC 3.0. This is a 60 Hz panel with 120 Hz motion rate to smooth out movies or any kind of action with the motion in it. But you're probably thinking to yourself, why does this TV have 3 HDMI 2.1 ports? Well, the reason is that HDMI 2.1 has a higher bandwidth, and that's going to allow anything you plug into this television to achieve better colors by having more information that can go to it. But keep in mind, this will not give you 120 Hz gaming play on PS5, Xbox, or even a computer. Picture quality is definitely one of the important things when it comes to a television, because at the end of the day, features don't matter if it doesn't look good. And I want to say that for the average consumer, you'll be very satisfied with the picture quality, and mainly because this TV has mega contrast, has a Crystal 4K processor, and it has dynamic crystal colors that's going to give you much better reproduction. This DU8000 doesn't have local dimming zones. Samsung uses a technology called Supreme UHD dimming, and this uses the technology of the screen and the lighting to produce a better contrast ratio. But what does this really look like? So I want to do a blooming test where I had some designs on the screen that was in white with the background being completely black, and it does a fairly decent job. And not saying that it's perfect, but it is going to be okay for someone who doesn't have a trained eye to look for these type of things. So I want to show you a quick clip from a movie, and for me, you can definitely see the backlights glowing in, but we'll see if we can do some adjustments with that to make it a little bit inkier. If you look at the scene I just paused, you can see the backlights right there. And currently the TV's in default movie mode. But if we switch to these, we have filmmakers mode, we have dynamic mode, which makes it a lot brighter. We have standard, eco mode if you want to save a little bit of electricity, and back to movie mode, but it didn't make a huge change. With this new menu system, you can now go directly to your picture setup, but I want to go into the picture profile of the TV, just see if we can do a little something here in the expert mode. Now, one thing I noticed from the factory, the contrast enhancer is off. Let's go and turn that on. So that's low and high. Again, it didn't make the backlights any darker. We can also try the gamma. So right now it's at BT 1886. And the last thing I would try is the shadow details. Again, not many changes there. Even with the demos I showed you, just keep in mind that this is something that's going to happen with the technology of LCD. Now we're going to talk about the display on the television, starting off with motion. So when it comes to motion, the biggest thing that you have to remember is that this is not a automatic settings. You will need to go into the settings and set it to your preference. The number one thing I can tell you is that if you're getting that soap opera effect that you don't like, you need to go into the menu system and adjust the judder control so you get a more realistic picture to what your likings are. In my opinion, when it comes to skin tones, this TV does a fairly good job as well. But keep in mind, it all depends on your settings. A lot of people tend to like the cinema settings, but when you're in that setting, it's going to make the picture look a lot warmer. So in most cases, I would recommend that you consider putting in a standard mode or dynamic if you want a brighter, punchier picture, but that's completely up to you. To give you an example, I want to pull up this tennis match, and if I go into the settings over here, you can see it's in the movie mode. But as we go through these different settings, you can see where the dynamic is going to bring out more of the brightness, but it kind of has that neon kind of look to it. But standard mode is going to be your better settings when it comes to watching sporting events if you want to achieve a more natural color, in my opinion. Now let's get into some gaming on the DU8000, and keep in mind if you have a PS5 or Xbox, it will not support 120 Hz, but we'll try to override the system and see what happens. Another thing I want to point out on the main menu system, you do have a gaming mode for the television, and you do have a gaming sound mode. And you can set up the automatic if you don't want to adjust anything on your own. So after I moved into this new studio, I couldn't find my input lag tester, but I will. But on average, this TV should give you about 9.7 milliseconds of input lag whenever you're using HDMI inputs. Now, as far as the settings, you see it does support 4K. If we go to the TV details, it is a 60 Hz TV, no 120 Hz support. You will get HDR10 support, and down here you're going to get 24 Hz, 50 Hz, and 60 Hz support as well. As we go into the TV mode here, you can see that this TV will support auto low latency, but it does not support variable refresh rates or Dolby Vision. And who knows, maybe the next generation of gaming consoles will support HDR10 Plus, which is similar to Dolby Vision, so they will support Samsung televisions. So just to double check, we're going to go into the Xbox menu and we're going to override the settings just to see if we can get 120 Hz. And as you can see, 1440p, we do have an option for 120 Hz. But let's see what happens once the TV figure out what we're trying to do. As you can see here, this TV doesn't support it whatsoever. So 120 Hz is not supported on this TV, even if you try to override the system. So I think the gameplay is going to be great on the console, but if you don't have one, you can hook up a Bluetooth controller to the television and you can do cloud-based games. Now, I know that these do require subscription. In fact, Xbox does require the Ultimate package, which is about $17 a month. But as you can see here, you can use this TV as a hub without having to have that physical console itself. Now, it's not going to be as good overall, but for someone in a crunch, or if you already have the Xbox Ultimate, just log into the TV and you can start playing it. In fact, you can see right here, start playing for free. All you need to do is go ahead and connect that Bluetooth controller on it and you have some free gameplay right here. So here's my final thoughts about the Samsung DU8000. Did Samsung do enough on this television to stay competitive? And I could say that's a yes or no question. And the reason I say that is that Samsung is a huge company. They make great products. The fact that this can interact with the smartphones and other products makes it a product that a lot of people might want to consider. But are they keeping up? And after reviewing a lot of TVs on this channel, there's a few things that this TV lacks that other TVs may have in the same price point. For example, I know that variable refresh rate for gamers is becoming a thing. This TV does not support it. I also know that some TVs will allow you to play a 1080p signal at 120 Hertz. This TV will not allow that. So is the software stopping that from happening, or is Samsung keeping us from having those options? If you go back and look at an old video I made, I think it was on the TU8000, it did support 1080p 120 Hertz, even though these are 60 Hertz panels and this one does not. So not sure if it was a reason for taking that option out. With that being said, I think the vignetting on it was pretty good. The black levels, they're so-so because you can see the backlights, especially if you're watching a letterbox widescreen movie. I think the colors are great. They pop. I mean, this is a recording, so here live, it looks pretty good. I think the picture quality on it is fantastic. I like the motion on it. Just keep in mind, you have to go manually do some settings. And I like the fact that this TV has this nice thin bezel that gives it that premium look. The remote control is still nice. I like the fact they have that new menu system. So now you can go here and adjust the picture setup, which you couldn't do on the previous version. You had to literally go into the main setup to get options. So they are listening to make things a little bit simpler. I wish they still had a source button on here because unless it's me, I can't figure out how to change inputs without going back to the home screen. In fact, I love Samsung TVs. In fact, some of my most watched videos are Samsungs. And I think at Christmas time, you're gonna probably see at some of these retailers to have 1,000 of these stacked up, or the last year model stacked up at the front door, because they know Samsung has a brand that you might be interested in, and the fact that their history kind of says a lot about the company. With that being said, give me your comments below. Tell me what you think. Did they do enough on the DU8000? Do you think this is going to keep up with the competitors, or do you think the budget market Samsung TV is going to get left behind? I'm Tech Steve. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.